get it paid for in our markets. I think it's going to be close. I don't know if we're going to get over the 50% line in time, though.
All right. Well, judges, what do you think?
Oh, wait, is this coming in?
Look, another classic McDonald's.
Judges say... Yes!
Well, congratulations, Melissa, for winning round one.
Thank you, Ira. Thank you, George. I appreciate it. But remember, this is only round one. There's another round after this.
Well, exactly. That's exactly what I was going to say. You progressed to our bonus round. Let's talk about that next round, right? Because the first goal that America set for itself with the Paris Agreement is to cut 50% of our emissions by 2030. But the bigger goal is to cut all greenhouse gases as far as possible to get to net zero by 2050. In your view, is there a credible path towards that you can imagine actually happening?
There's definitely a credible path. I think there is, but it's going to be challenging, and it requires us to make a choice to get on that path. And a lot of it is just doing a lot more of what we've already been talking about. Not just making more buildings more energy efficient. We're making every single building more energy efficient. We're electrifying those buildings. We're pulling all the emissions out of those buildings. We're getting every single car and truck and bus and plane to zero emissions. Every single thing in our transportation.
When you say it this way, it just seems so big. It's hard to fathom that could actually happen.
I mean, it's massive. It is massive. It is a huge, huge undertaking. Some people describe it as a wartime effort. I think that's right. It's massive to do this over the next just few decades. We're talking about 2050. It's not that long from now.
Well, that makes me feel not so super hopeful, just to say.
But if we don't actually get there, we know the costs of inaction, of not moving there, and they're not pretty. So I'm talking about extreme events that flood Houston, or swing across Florida, heat waves in Southern California that lead to people dying. When you start to add up all these health costs and also the insurance costs, the cost of rebuilding homes, it's so much larger than building solar panels and nuclear power plants and retrofitting buildings and replacing cars.
Well, listen, thank you so much for playing our game. Let's bring in some inappropriately cheerful game show music. And George, tell her what she's won.
Well, Melissa, how about a brand new SUV? 2 plane tickets too. A subscription to Diesel and State Lovers magazine.
What else you got there, buddy?
Well, Melissa, this is perfect. How about autographed copies of the collected works of Bill McKibben?
That's not like it. Well, listen, thanks again, Melissa. And George, take it away.
Thanks so much, everybody. And we'll see you next time. If we're not all fleeing a wildfire or hurricane on You Bet Your Planet's Life.
You can see our contestant Melissa Lott in an episode of Nova called Chasing Carbon Zero. She also has the least hand-wringing podcast about climate change imaginable. It is all very practical. Here's how we tackle this problem. It is called The Big Switch, about the transition to a net zero world. Act 3. You didn't hear it from me. No, really, you didn't. This last game actually happened on another show, a podcast called Normal Gossip.
Now it turns into
and if you haven't heard Normal Gossip, the way it works, people on the show basically dish about actual gossip, like true stories about normal, everyday people sent in by listeners. And last season, the producers recreated a version of, that old game, Telephone, where somebody whispers something to the person next to them, who whispers it to the person next to them, and on down the line. One of our producers, Sean Cole, has this rundown of what happened when they did a version of that on Normal Gossip. And it revealed some interesting things about the stories that we tell each other. For Sean.
I think I see Newark
folks at
Airport.
Normal Gossip.
Yeah.
They created the game for a very practical reason. While they were gearing up for season 2, they got to talking about how long it had taken during season 1 for the guests to relax and settle into the conversation.
And so we were having this brainstorming session where we were talking about ways that we could just give them some more time and space ahead of the recording to loosen up.
This is the producer of Normal Gossip, Alex Sujong Laughlin.
And I came up with this idea that, what if we had them play a game that is a game of gossip?
Gossip itself, of course, is sort of like a game of telephone. So they figured, let's just do that. Alex grabbed one of the gossip stories from their inbox and read it to the first guest that they had, and then recorded her telling it right back, just whatever that person could remember. Played that for the second guest, had them tell it back, and so on.
I told them not to take notes, because you don't generally take notes when somebody's telling you a gossip story, right? Like, you're not like
Unless you're a gossip columnist, I suppose.
Yeah, exactly.
Don't be a
Unless
Grinch,
you're
let
me.
them merge.
So yeah, I said, do the best you can. If you don't remember something, that's fine. If you feel like tweaking a detail for fun, you can.
But for the most part, try and be pretty faithful to the story you heard. Alex didn't really expect anything interesting to happen. But then, when she listened through to all the versions, she realized she was seeing in real time how gossip works, how a story can evolve and change, that there was a logic to how it changed. Sure, there was some willy-nilly embellishing here and there, but for the most part, the changes were for a very specific reason. And I'm going to get to that. But first, you need to hear the original version of the story so that you can appreciate, when we get there, how different it was by the end of the game.
Yes,
I'm
I
gonna continue
have
right
the
away,
text
okay?
here.
I asked Alex to read it to me. I should say, with every gossip story they tell on the show, the names and all the identifying details are changed. So it's completely anonymized. This story concerns two people who they called Kyle and Elliot. They started dating sometime before the pandemic.
Kyle had grown up super religious and had been married to a woman. But he came out, left his family, left the church, and moved to the city where he met Elliot.
And Elliot's really the main character of the story. You need to know that he's
Look,
part of this active
I-78
group
is
chat
right
with
there.
college friends, where they talk about their lives.
Everyone in the group chat was obsessed with Kyle. He was so warm, genuine, thoughtful. They move in together, adopt a cat, and are teaching it all kinds of tricks. Then Elliot proposes, and Kyle proposes back. It's so adorable. The pandemic hits, and the group chat starts doing Zooms, as you do. Usually significant others pop in and say hi, and they all love to see Kyle. Around June, Elliot mentions
Take
that
that.
he's going home for a bit, doesn't mention Kyle.
Sure.
A few weeks later, the group Zooms, and Kyle doesn't show up. They ask where he is. Elliot says, I didn't want to bring this up yet, but Kyle has actually left me.
Wait, which way?
Turns out,
US
Kyle just packed up and disappeared. Left the cat, no explanation, ghosted his fiance. He disappeared off social media, and nobody knows where he went. Elliot is crushed.
Where am I going now?
1-9 truck.
So, fast forward a year later.